The flickering candlelight danced across the polished oak table, casting long shadows that seemed to mock the warmth my family pretended to share. It was supposed to be a simple Sunday dinner at my parents' sprawling estate, the kind where generations gathered laughing over heirloom recipes. But as I watched, my heart shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. My daughter, sweet little Emma, sat there wide-eyed, her plate shoved in front of her like an afterthought. A heap of cold, congealed leftovers from last night's roast scraped together without a care. No fresh carving. No steaming sides. Just scraps. Meanwhile, my sister's daughter, my niece, beamed from the head of the table, the seat of honor that should have been shared. In her chubby fist gleamed the family silver spoon, an antique heirloom passed down with pomp as my parents cooed over her like she was royalty reborn. "Our little princess deserves the best," my mother gushed, while my father nodded approvingly, ignoring Emma's trembling lip. The favoritism wasn't new, it had simmered in our family for years, a toxic undercurrent I'd swallowed for too long. But seeing Emma's eyes well up, her small voice cracking with a sob that echoed through the room, that was the breaking point. Betrayal burned in my chest like acid. Humiliation for my child, my flesh and blood, treated like a second-class citizen in her own grandparents' home. I said nothing. No explosive rant, no pleas for fairness. I simply rose, took Emma's hand in mine, her tiny fingers cold and shaking, and led her out into the night. The door clicked shut behind us, sealing the silence of my rage. That evening, alone in the dim glow of my laptop, I logged into the joint accounts. Every cent I'd funneled to my parents and sister over the years, the allowance that kept their lavish lifestyle afloat, I withdrew it all. No mercy, no warning. No. By noon the next day, my phone erupted in a frenzy of calls, desperate voicemails, frantic texts begging, accusing, unraveling. But oh dear viewer, this is merely the spark. What follows is a whirlwind of shocking twists, hidden letters from the grave vanishing heirlooms, midnight intruders, and a family secret that shatters everything. Stick with me to the end, and I promise you'll witness the ultimate payoff, sweet, satisfying revenge, where the overlooked rise, the entitled fall, and justice taste like victory. You won't believe how it all unfolds. My name is Eleanor Hayes, though everyone calls me Ellie. At 62, I'm a retired school teacher from a small town in Ohio, where I spent 30 years shaping young minds before my husband's passing left me to raise our daughter alone, with a modest pension and some savings. I've always been the steady one in my family, quietly supporting my aging parents and wayward sister through thick and thin, hoping one day they'd see me and my child as equals. The autumn sun was dipping low that Sunday afternoon as I pulled my old sedan into the gravel driveway of my parents' Victorian home in the suburbs of Cleveland. The house stood as it always had, with its wraparound porch adorned in fading chrysanthemums and the faint scent of wood smoke curling from the chimney, a picture of Midwestern charm that masked the cracks beneath. I glanced at my daughter Mia in the passenger seat. At 12, she was all gangly limbs and bright eyes, her dark hair tied back in a ponytail that bobbed with excitement. "Grandma promised apple pie today," she said, her voice bubbling with the innocent anticipation that only children can muster. I smiled, squeezing her hand, though a familiar knot tightened in my stomach. These family dinners were meant to be gatherings of love, but they'd long felt like performances where roles were rigidly assigned, and mine was always in the shadows. We stepped inside to the aroma of roasting turkey and sage, the kind that wrapped around you like a warm blanket. My mother, Dorothy, in her 70s now, with silver hair pinned neatly and an apron tied over her Sunday dress, greeted us at the door. "Ellie dear, you're just in time," she said, her hug brief and perfunctory, her eyes already darting past me to the living room where laughter echoed. My father, George, sat in his recliner by the fireplace, his once strong frame now stooped with age, a newspaper folded on his lap. He nodded at me with a gruff, "Hello," his attention quickly shifting as my sister Rebecca swept in from the kitchen. Rebecca was 5 years my junior, still vibrant at 57 with highlighted blonde hair and an air of entitlement that she'd worn like a crown since childhood. She'd never held a steady job, bouncing from one failed venture to another boutique owner real estate dabbler, always landing on her feet thanks to handouts from our parents, and reluctantly from me. Trailing behind her was her daughter, Lily, Mia's cousin, also 12, but carrying herself with the poise of someone twice her age. Lily's dress was crisp and new, her shoes polished to a shine, a stark contrast to Mia's hand-me-down sweater and jeans that I'd mended just last week. The dining room table was set with the good china crystal glasses catching the light from the chandelier overhead. It looked inviting, a spread of mashed potatoes, green beans, and carved turkey that promised comfort. We took our seats, the familiar creak of chairs underscoring the ritual. I helped Mia settle in next to me across from Rebecca and Lily. As the plates were passed, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this time it would be different. Maybe the years of quiet resentment would dissolve in shared stories and equal portions. But as the serving began, the undercurrent of favoritism surfaced like oil on water. Mother heaped Lily's plate first, piling on generous slices of turkey breast steaming from the oven, alongside buttery rolls and fresh cranberry sauce. "Here you go, my little star," she cooed, her voice laced with adoration. Father leaned over, his eyes twinkling as he placed the antique silver spoon, the family heirloom engraved with our great-grandmother's initials, beside Lily's setting. "That's for you, princess. The seat at the head is yours today. You've earned it with those straight A's." Lily beamed, straightening in the exalted chair usually reserved for Father himself, basking in the glow of their undivided attention. Then came Mia's turn. Mother scooped a meager portion onto her plate. Cold remnants from the fridge, grayish turkey scraps mixed with congealed gravy, a few limp beans that had clearly been reheated or not. No fresh cuts, no special touches, just leftovers, as if Mia were an afterthought, a guest who'd arrived uninvited. Rebecca smirked slightly, chatting animatedly with Lily about her latest dance recital while ignoring the disparity unfolding before us. I watched Mia's face crumple, her fork hovering uncertainly. Her lower lip trembled, and then the tears came silent at first, then a soft sniffle that pierced the room like a dagger. The air grew thick, the clink of silverware halting as eyes turned toward her. Mother's brow furrowed in mild annoyance. "Oh, Mia, don't be dramatic. There's plenty more if you're still hungry." Father cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze. Rebecca rolled her eyes, subtly whispering something to Lily that made her giggle. But Mia's tears flowed freely now, her small hands balling into fists on the tablecloth. The humiliation was palpable, a wave crashing over us both. I felt it in my bones, the echo of my own childhood slights, the times I'd been sidelined while Rebecca shone. But this was my daughter. My heart walking outside my body, reduced to scraps in the home that should have been her sanctuary. A fire ignited within me, hot and unyielding. I could have spoken up, unleashed the words that had festered for decades, the accusations of bias, the pleas for fairness. But words had failed me before. They'd been dismissed as jealousy or overreaction. No, this called for action silent and swift. I pushed back my chair, the scrape echoing in the sudden hush. "Come on, Mia," I murmured, my voice steady despite the storm inside. I extended my hand and she took it, her fingers clammy and trusting. We stood together, leaving our untouched plates behind. As we walked toward the door, the family's stares burned into my back. Mother's voice called out tentative, "Ellie, where are you going?" Father's grumble followed, something about not making a scene. Rebecca said nothing, her silence louder than any protest. Mia clung to me, her sobs quieting to hiccups as the cool evening air hit our faces. I buckled her into the car, my movements deliberate, my mind racing ahead to the consequences I'd unleash. And as the door closed behind us, I realized the fight had already begun. The gravel crunched beneath the tires as I eased the car away from the curb, the porch light of my parents' house shrinking in the rearview mirror until it was nothing more than a cold, yellow pinprick. Mia's sobs filled the small space, raw and ragged, each one a fresh wound. I reached across the console and pulled her as close as the seatbelt allowed, her head against my shoulder, her hair damp with tears. "Shh, sweetheart. It's all right now," I whispered, though the words tasted hollow. They weren't all right. Nothing about that table had been all right, and the image of her plate, those congealed scraps, burned behind my eyes like acid. I drove slowly, letting the quiet streets of the suburbs swallow us, the street lamps flickering past in steady rhythm, each one a small mercy of light in the gathering dark. When we reached the stop sign at the end of Maple Lane, I pulled over and killed the engine. The sudden silence was almost louder than her crying. I unbuckled us both and turned to face her fully. Mia's face was blotchy, her eyes swollen, but beneath the hurt was something harder. Confusion, maybe even the first stirrings of anger. "Why do they love Lily more?" she asked, voice small and cracked. "I didn't do anything wrong." The question sliced straight through me. I cupped her cheeks, thumbs brushing away the tears that kept coming. "You did nothing wrong, baby. This isn't about you. It's about them, about choices they've made for a very long time." She leaned into my palms, trusting, and I felt the weight of every promise I'd ever made to protect her settle on my shoulders like lead. The pain from the dinner clung to us both, a sour residue that no amount of night air could wash away. I could still smell the turkey on her breath, still see the way my mother's hand had lingered over Lily's plate while barely grazing Mia's. The favoritism had always been there, a quiet poison, but tonight it had been served up on fine china for all to see. I pressed my forehead to Mia's and breathed her in shampoo and salt and the faint sweetness of childhood and vowed silently that this would be the last time she tasted their contempt. As the minutes stretched, memories I'd buried for decades began to surface, unbidden but insistent. I was 8 again, standing in the same dining room, my own plate pushed to the edge, while Rebecca, 3 years younger, and already the sun around which our parents orbited, received the largest slice of birthday cake, the one with the rose made of icing. I'd asked for a corner piece, just a taste of the flower, and Mother had sighed, "Ellie, don't be greedy. Rebecca's the birthday girl." Father had ruffled Rebecca's curls and said nothing to me. Later, when I'd found the rose discarded on Rebecca's plate, half-eaten and forgotten, I'd cried in the pantry so no one would hear. Another time at 16, I'd won the county spelling bee front-page news in our little town and come home clutching the trophy. Mother had glanced up from the catalog she was showing Rebecca for prom dresses and said, "That's nice, dear. Rebecca, do you like the blue or the pink?" The trophy had gathered dust on a shelf in my bedroom while Rebecca's dance recital photos filled the living room frames. Those moments had taught me early that love in our house was a finite resource doled out in proportion to perceived shine. I'd learned to make myself small, to anticipate needs, to give without asking. After college, when Rebecca's first marriage collapsed, and she moved back home with a toddler and a mountain of debt, I'd sent money every month, first from my teacher's salary, then from the life insurance after Tom died. My parents had praised my responsibility, but never once asked how Mia and I were managing on one income. I'd told myself it was duty family, the Christian thing to do. Tonight, watching Mia's shoulders shake, I saw it for what it was. A one-way street paved with my own sacrifices. We sat there until her breathing evened out, until the street was empty and the stars pricked the sky overhead. I kissed the top of her head. "Let's go home, sweetheart. Tomorrow will be better." She nodded against my chest, trusting as ever, and I started the car again. The drive to our modest bungalow on Elm Street took 20 minutes, but it felt like crossing a border into a country where fairness might actually exist. Inside, I tucked Mia into bed with the stuffed rabbit she still clung to on bad nights. She was asleep within minutes, exhaustion claiming her. I stood in the doorway a moment, watching the rise and fall of her chest, then closed the door softly and went to the kitchen. The house was quiet, the tick of the wall clock the only sound. I poured myself a glass of water, but didn't drink it. Instead, I opened the junk drawer and pulled out the small velvet pouch I hadn't touched in years. Inside lay my grandmother's pearl brooch, simple, elegant, the only thing she'd left me directly when she passed. "Wear it when you need courage, Eleanor," she'd said, pressing it into my palm the week before she died. I'd worn it to Tom's funeral, to parent-teacher conferences when budgets were cut, to every moment I'd needed to remember I was more than the role my family assigned me. Tonight the pearls gleamed softly under the kitchen light, and I felt grandmother's steady gaze in them. She'd seen the favoritism too, had lived it herself as the eldest daughter passed over for a younger son. She'd built her own life, brick by quiet brick, and left me this small legacy, as a reminder that worth wasn't measured by who sat at the head of the table. I fastened the brooch to my sweater right over my heart, and the decision crystallized no more. The monthly transfers that kept my parents' lights on, and Rebecca's credit cards paid, those ended tonight. I would sell the brooch if I had to pawn it for seed money to start something of my own, but I would not fund their indifference one day longer. I moved to the living room and opened my laptop on the coffee table. The screen's glow felt clinical, almost surgical. I logged into the bank, navigated to the joint accounts I'd set up years ago for emergencies. My parents' names were listed alongside mine, Rebecca's too. The balances stared back, comfortable, cushioned by my steady contributions. With a few clicks, I initiated transfers to an account in my name only. The money moved silently, irrevocably. I left enough for a single month's bills out of habit, not kindness, then closed the joint accounts entirely. The confirmation emails pinged softly. Done. A strange calm settled over me, the kind that follows a storm when the air is washed clean. I leaned back on the couch, the brooch cool against my skin, and allowed myself a small, fierce smile. This was only the beginning of standing tall, of teaching Mia that love didn't have to be earned with scraps. We would build our own table set with whatever we chose, and no one would ever hand her leftovers again. I gathered my keys to lock up for the night, and opened the glove compartment for the garage remote. My fingers brushed something unexpected, a yellowed envelope tucked beneath the owner's manual. My name was written on the front in grandmother's careful script. I'd never seen it before. Heart thudding, I slid it free. That night, I found an old letter in my glove compartment, one I had never opened before. The envelope felt heavier than its paper weight, as if the ink itself carried the gravity of years unspoken. I carried it back to the couch, the house silent, except for the low hum of the refrigerator, and Mia's faint breathing down the hall. My fingers trembled only slightly as I slid a fingernail beneath the sealed flap. The glue gave with a soft rip that sounded louder in the stillness than it should have. The paper unfolded with a faint crackle, releasing a scent of lavender, an old cedar grandmother's scent, the one that had lingered in her parlor where she'd let me read her forbidden novels while Mother fretted over Rebecca's ballet slippers. The handwriting was unmistakable, spidery, yet firm, the loops of her Y's and G's sweeping like the tails of comets. My dearest Eleanor. It began, and just seeing my full name in her script brought a rush of warmth to my chest. I have watched you grow into a woman of quiet strength and boundless kindness, qualities your mother seems determined not to see. I write this not from anger but from love, because someone must tell you the truth you have been taught to doubt you are the heart of this family, even if they treat you as its afterthought. I read on the words, blurring as tears gathered. She praised my patience with the neighborhood children who trailed after me like ducklings. My straight-A report cards tucked away in drawers while Rebecca's C's were framed, my willingness to mend hems and tutor math long after my own homework was done. You have a gift for seeing people clearly, she wrote, and forgiving without tally. Do not let them convince you that generosity is weakness. Then came the part that stopped my breath. I have set aside a portion of my estate, separate from the main trust your parents manage for you and any child you may have who suffers the same oversight. It is not vast, but it is yours alone to be claimed when injustice demands it. The lawyer has instructions. Use it to build the life you deserve, not the scraps they offer. A hidden inheritance. Not the house or the stocks or the silver service, but something safeguarded for the overlooked. The realization hit like sunrise after a long night. Grandmother had seen the pattern decades before I did, had watched her own daughter favor one grandchild over another, and chosen to break the chain with quiet rebellion. I pressed the letter to my lips, tasting salt and paper, and felt a surge of power I hadn't known I possessed. This wasn't charity. It was armor. The memories came unbidden, sharp as winter air. I was 10, standing in the school auditorium, clutching a blue ribbon for the science fair, my volcano model still fizzing with baking soda lava. Mother had promised to come, but Rebecca had a stomach bug, so she'd stayed home. Father arrived late, distracted, clapping politely before steering me toward the exit with a brisk, "Good job, kiddo." The next week, Rebecca recovered enough for her piano recital. Both parents sat front row camcorder whirring, beaming as if she'd composed Beethoven herself. My ribbon ended up in a shoebox under my bed, forgotten until I moved out at 18. Another flash, age 14, babysitting Rebecca's friends while she snuck out to a party. I'd cleaned up their spilled soda and popcorn, tucked the younger ones in with stories, only to have Mother scold me the next morning for letting the girls stay up late. "You're the responsible one, Eleanor. Act like it." Rebecca breezed in at noon, hungover but unscolded, and Mother made her favorite pancakes shaped like hearts. I ate cereal in the laundry room so I wouldn't have to watch. The parallels to Mia were excruciating. Last spring, Mia had won the regional art contest. Her watercolor of our backyard swing took first place. I'd framed it myself, hung it proudly above our fireplace. When I mentioned it casually over the phone, Mother had hummed, "That's nice, dear. Did I tell you Lily's been accepted into the gifted dance program? They say she's a prodigy." No questions about the contest, no congratulations for Mia. Just the same deflection, the same erasure. I'd swallowed the hurt, then told myself it didn't matter. But it did. It always had. Grandmother's letter laid the cycle bare. Mother had been the overlooked middle child of 5, passed over for her flashy younger brother, and instead of breaking the pattern, she'd replicated it with surgical precision. Rebecca. The late-life surprise became the golden child. I, the dutiful firstborn, became the reliable mule. And now, Mia, bright and kind and utterly blameless, was being groomed for the same role. The inheritance wasn't just money, it was permission to refuse the script. I folded the letter carefully, sliding it back into the envelope, and tucked it into the inner pocket of my purse right beside my wallet, where I'd feel its presence every time I reached for change. Sleep evaded me that night. I lay staring at the ceiling fan's slow rotation, mapping out next steps. The lawyer's name was in the letter, Margaret Ellison, retired now, but still practicing in Akron. I'd call her first thing Monday, confirm the details, begin the process of claiming what was rightfully ours. No more monthly transfers. No more bailing Rebecca out of credit card debt. No more pretending their approval was oxygen. We would breathe on our own. Dawn crept through the blinds in pale stripes. I rose early, brewed coffee strong enough to scald, and sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad. By the time Mia patted in, rubbing sleep from her eyes, I'd outlined a budget, a timeline, even a rough sketch of the small tutoring business I'd always dreamed of starting. "Mom?" she asked, voice husky. I pulled her onto my lap despite her 12-year-old protests. "We're going to be okay," I told her. Better than okay. "We're going to build something they can't touch." She nestled closer, and for the first time since the dinner, her smile reached her eyes. I drove her to school, the letter a secret talisman against my heart. On the way back, I stopped at the grocery for milk and eggs, routine errands that felt strangely liberating. As I loaded bags into the trunk, my phone buzzed, Rebecca, no doubt furious about the emptied accounts. I let it ring. When I pulled into our driveway, a familiar sedan was parked at the curb, Rebecca's gleaming and leased on money that would soon dry up. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, face pinched with outrage. But it was what she held that stopped me cold, the yellowed envelope, my envelope clutched in her manicured fingers like contraband. The next morning, I saw my sister carrying that same letter into our parents' study. I stood frozen in the driveway, grocery bags dangling from my wrists, watching Rebecca march up the porch steps of my parents' house, with my grandmother's letter pinched between her fingers like evidence in a trial. The morning light caught the gold of her watch, my Christmas gift 2 years ago, and turned it into a small, accusing sun. She disappeared inside without a glance back, the screen door slapping shut behind her. My pulse hammered in my throat, but I forced myself to breathe, to set the milk and eggs on the passenger seat, to drive the 3 miles home without speeding. Whatever storm she was brewing, I would not meet, it rattled. By the time I'd unpacked the groceries and poured a second cup of coffee, the first text arrived. It was from Mother, all capitals and exclamation points. Ellie, call me immediately. I let it sit. 10 seconds later, another, this is not funny. Then Rebecca. You have some nerve. I sipped the coffee, black, feeling the heat steady me. The phone buzzed again. Father, this time his message curt. We need to talk. Now. I turned the ringer to silent and placed the phone face down on the counter. The silence that followed was not empty. It was deliberate. A wall I was learning to build brick by brick. I opened my laptop and pulled up the banking app. The joint accounts glowed on the screen like open wounds, the household fund I'd seeded for utilities and repairs. The emergency savings that had bailed Rebecca out of 3 failed boutiques, the petty cash pool that paid for Mother's bridge club luncheons and Father's golf dues. My name sat atop each one, co-owner in perpetuity, the reliable signature they'd never questioned. I initiated the transfers with the same calm I'd once used to grade spelling tests' methodical final. The household fund emptied into my personal checking with a soft digital chime. The emergency savings followed. The petty cash account closed entirely. I left exactly $100 in each, enough for a tank of gas, not a lifestyle. Confirmation emails slid into my inbox like quiet applause. The phone, still face down, began to vibrate in short, frantic bursts. I flipped it over. 17 missed calls. 4 voicemails, a string of texts that scrolled like ticker tape. Mother's first voicemail was breathy, almost girlish. Eleanor, whatever this is, we can fix it. Just come over and we'll talk. The second was sharper. You're overreacting. That money is for the family. Rebecca's message was pure venom. You think you can just cut us off after everything we've done for you. Father's was gruff, wounded. This is how you repay us. Call me back. I listened to each one once, then deleted them. Their voices cracked and overlapped in my memory. But the cracks were theirs, not mine. I poured the last of the coffee and carried the laptop to the living room window. From here, I could see the maple tree Mia and I had planted the spring after Tom died, its leaves just beginning to turn. The sight grounded me. I opened a new spreadsheet and titled it Independence. Column 1, Current Balances. Column 2, Monthly Expenses. Column 3, Income Streams. Pension, tutoring, side gig, potential sale of the brooch if needed. The numbers were lean but honest. For the first time in years, they were mine alone. The texts kept coming. Mother sent a photo of the dining room table set for 4, the silver spoon glinting in its usual place beside Lily's plate, captioned, "See, everything's fine. Come for lunch." Rebecca followed with a voice memo, her tone swinging between tears and fury. You're destroying us, Ellie. How are we supposed to live? In the background, I heard Father shouting at someone, probably the cable company, about a bill that had bounced. A second later, another text from Rebecca. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. This is on you. I felt the old guilt rise like bile, but I swallowed it down. Their panic was proof the leash had been real. My calm was proof I'd slipped it. By late afternoon, the messages shifted from pleading to bargaining. Mother offered to host a family meeting at neutral ground, the country club, naturally. Rebecca promised to make it up to Mia with a shopping spree. Father sent a single line, "I can't believe my own daughter would do this." I read each one, then archived the thread. The silence I returned was not cruelty. It was oxygen. Every ignored ping strengthened the muscle I'd never been allowed to flex. Mia came home from school with a watercolor of the maple tree, the leaves rendered in bold reds and golds. "For you," she said shyly, and I hung it above the fireplace where grandmother's portrait used to be. We ate macaroni and cheese from the blue-rimmed bowls we'd bought at a yard sale, and I told her we were starting a new chapter. She didn't ask about the phone I'd left charging in the kitchen. She simply leaned against me while we watched an old movie, her head heavy on my shoulder. In that small moment, the world felt balanced. Night settled in layers of indigo. I tucked Mia in, kissed her forehead, and returned to the living room to lock up. My phone, now on the charger, showed 32 missed calls and a new voicemail time-stamped 9:47 p.m. I didn't play it. Instead, I opened the banking app one last time to confirm the transfers had posted. They had. The accounts were mine, the bridges burned clean. I powered the phone off completely, something I hadn't done in years, and felt the house exhale around me. Across town in the dining room, I'd fled the night before the table would be set for tomorrow's breakfast. The silver spoon symbol of favor, emblem of exclusion, would rest in its velvet-lined drawer, waiting to crown the next chosen child. But when Mother reached for it in the morning, her fingers would close on empty air. That same night, the silver spoon vanished from their dining room table. The morning arrived with the soft clatter of my own coffee spoon against the rim of a chipped ceramic mug, a sound so ordinary it felt like rebellion. Mia had left for school with her watercolor tucked safely in her backpack, and the house hummed with the quiet of a Tuesday, unburdened by anyone else's expectations. I was at the kitchen table reconciling the last of the transferred balances when the first text from Mother slid across the screen. "The spoon is gone." I stared at the words, then at the photo she'd attached the empty velvet indentation in the silverware drawer. The spoon's absence, a small, perfect void. My pulse quickened, not with fear but with recognition. The heirloom had vanished overnight, and with it the illusion that their world still turned on the same polished axis. I knew exactly where it had been at 6:47 p.m. the evening before because I had photographed it. After walking out of their dining room, I had paused on the porch under the pretense of retrieving Mia's forgotten jacket. While Mother fussed in the kitchen and Rebecca scrolled her phone, I had slipped back just long enough to open the drawer, angle my phone, and capture the spoon nestled between the fish forks and the demitasse set. The image was crisp, the engraved initials, the faint patina along the handle, the unmistakable proof that their symbol of favor had been exactly where it belonged until it wasn't. I had closed the drawer, pocketed the phone, and left without a word. Insurance, I'd told myself then. Leverage, I understood now. Their panic unfolded in real time. Mother's next message was a voice note. Her voice pitched high with the brittle edge of someone discovering a crack in fine china. "Eleanor, the police are coming. This is a family heirloom. Great-grandmother carried it across the Atlantic." Rebecca chimed in with a string of texts. "Lily is hysterical. She thinks someone broke in. Dad's checking the security cameras. Then Father Terse call me. The spoon is insured for $15,000. I let the messages stack like unread mail. Their privilege was unraveling thread by thread, and the spoon, once a casual prop in their pageant of preference, was now the loose stitch that threatened the entire tapestry. By 10 o'clock, the group chat had devolved into a tangle of accusations. Rebecca blamed the cleaning lady who came on Mondays. Mother insisted the woman had been with them for 12 years and would never. Father sent a blurry screenshot from the doorbell camera. Nothing but the empty porch at 2:14 a.m. Lily posted a tear-streaked selfie holding the empty velvet case, captioning it, "My legacy stolen." The comments beneath were a chorus of neighborhood sympathy, each heart emoji another pebble in the avalanche of their public humiliation. I watched from the sidelines, phone on airplane mode, feeling the strange calm of a chess player who has just sacrificed a pawn to expose the king. At 11:03, I opened an anonymous email account I'd created months ago for freelance tutoring inquiries. I attached the photograph of the spoon in its drawer, timestamp visible, and typed a single paragraph. "The spoon is safe. It will be returned when Mia is treated as an equal heir publicly, legally, without condition. Until then, every week it remains missing will cost you another privilege. The country club membership, the lake house keys, the college fund you promised Lily, but never opened for Mia. Choose." I signed it only with a period, hit send to the family's shared address, and closed the laptop. The message would land like a stone in still water, ripples widening with every second they failed to act. Their response was immediate and splintered. Mother forwarded the email to me with 17 question marks. Rebecca replied, all with a screenshot of her own bank app showing a decline charge at the boutique, her first taste of the new reality. Father left a voicemail so low and furious I could barely make out the words, something about lawsuits and disowning. But beneath the bluster, I heard the tremor. The spoon was more than silver. It was the physical proof of their right to decide who mattered. Without it, the table was just a table. The head chair just wood. The first crack in their unity appeared in a private text from Mother to Rebecca that she accidentally sent to the group. "Did you take it to teach Ellie a lesson?" Rebecca's reply was instant. "How dare you?" I heard the argument later, muffled through a voicemail Rebecca meant for Lily, but sent to me by mistake. Mother hissing that Rebecca had always been careless with valuables. Rebecca retorting that Mother had babied her into helplessness. The spoon had become the fault line where decades of resentment finally split open. I spent the afternoon in the garden, deadheading the last of the roses, the scent sharp and sweet. The phone stayed inside, but I could feel its vibration through the screen door like a distant drum. When Mia came home, I met her at the bus stop with lemonade and the promise of pizza for dinner. She didn't ask about the spoon. She only wanted to know if we could paint the fence together on Saturday. I said yes, and the word felt like planting a flag. At 12:47, while I grated cheese over pepperoni slices, my phone lit up with a notification I hadn't expected. The sender was a law firm I recognized, Ellison & Associates, the same name grandmother had written in her letter. The subject line was simple, urgent, impossible to ignore. At lunch, I received a secure email titled, "The House Agreement. Read immediately." The pepperoni hissed in the oven as I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened the secure email on my phone. The sender's address was formal, margaret.ellison@ellisonlaw.com, and the attachment carried a digital seal that glowed faintly against the screen. I clicked it open and the document unfolded like a map to buried treasure. The Hayes Family Estate Agreement, executed 1998, revised 2012. 47 pages of legalese, but the cover letter from Margaret Ellison cut straight to the heart. Per your grandmother's instructions, this codicil is released upon evidence of material inequity in inheritance distribution. Please review Section 14C. I scrolled the kitchen light pooling over the table where Mia hummed while setting out paper plates. Section 14C was buried between clauses about mineral rights and charitable remainders. But there it stood in plain, unforgiving English. In the event that any lineal descendant of Dorothy Agnes Hayes is demonstrably excluded from equitable participation in the estate, whether by omission, diminution, or preferential treatment to the detriment of another. The entirety of the principal residence at 1427 Maple Lane. Cleveland Heights shall revert to the excluded party or parties free of encumbrance upon filing of a sworn affidavit of inequity with the probate court. The clause was initialed in grandmother's distinctive flourish witnessed by Margaret Ellison herself. My breath caught. The house, the Victorian with its warped floorboards, its attic full of trunks, its porch swing where I'd learned to read was not merely a backdrop to their favoritism. It was the prize. I read the section twice more, then forwarded the document to my personal cloud drive and closed the app. The pizza timer dinged. Mia slid the tray onto the stovetop cheese bubbling like molten gold. "Smells amazing," she said, and for a moment, the weight lifted. We ate cross-legged on the living room rug, sauce on our chins, the television murmuring an old sitcom neither of us watched. But the claws burned behind my eyes a live coal. By 8 o'clock, I had drafted my response. I used the same anonymous account that had sent the spoon photograph attaching the redacted codicil. Section 14C, highlighted in bold. The message was short surgical. Mia Hayes is to be named co-equal beneficiary of the estate effective immediately with public acknowledgement and legal amendment filed within 7 days. Failure to comply triggers the reversion clause. The house becomes ours. The spoon returns when the papers are signed. I hit send before doubt could creep in, then powered the phone down and slipped it into a kitchen drawer. Let them stew. Their reactions arrived in waves, each more fractured than the last. Mother's first text was a single word, impossible. Rebecca followed with a voice memo, her voice pitched high with disbelief. "You're bluffing. Grandmother would never." But the tremor beneath her bravado told another story. Father left a voicemail at 9:12 p.m. The background clatter of silverware suggesting they were still at the dining table, picking at a late supper. None of them tasted. Eleanor. "This is insanity." That clause was a joke, grandmother's dramatics. "Call me." I could hear Mother in the distance, shrill. "George, she can't just take the house." Then Rebecca. Sharper. "If anyone gets it, it should be Lily. She's the only one who visits." The cracks widened by the hour. At 10:03, Rebecca sent me a private message, the tone wheedling Ellie. "Let's talk like sisters. We can split the lake house, keep the Cleveland property intact." I didn't reply. 5 minutes later, Mother forwarded an email from the family attorney, some junior partner I'd never met, claiming the codicil was procedurally defective. I forwarded it to Margaret Ellison with a single line, "Please confirm validity." Her reply came within minutes. "Clause is ironclad. Probate will enforce." I screenshotted the exchange and saved it. By 11, the group chat had splintered into side conversations I wasn't privy to. But the leaked snippets told the tale. Rebecca accused Father of hiding the codicil years ago to protect his golf buddy's access to the guest cottage. Father shot back that Rebecca had pawned Mother's pearls in 2018 and never replaced them. Mother wailed that no one appreciated the sacrifices she'd made keeping the house pristine. Lily, apparently allowed on the adult thread, now posted a crying emoji and the words, "I just want my spoon back." The family I'd once bent over backward to sustain was devouring itself from the inside, each bite fueled by the fear that their castle might slip through their fingers. Mia was asleep by then. Her bedroom door cracked just enough for the hallway light to stripe her quilt. I stood in the dark living room, the codicil open on my tablet, the reversion clause glowing like a promise. The house had been grandmother's sanctuary, the one place she'd ruled after grandfather's death. She'd hosted bridge clubs in the sunroom, taught me to bake lemon bars in the kitchen with the cracked tile, let me hide in the attic during thunderstorms. To think of it passing to Mia to us was not greed. It was justice wearing its rightful crown. I was rinsing the pizza plates when the first doubt crept in. What if they called my bluff? What if the courts dragged on for years? But Margaret Ellison's email had included a timeline. Probate could move in 90 days with uncontested filing. I had the spoon, the photograph, the clause, and now the lawyer. The cards were mine to play. The clock ticked past midnight. I turned off the kitchen light and stepped onto the back porch for air. The night was crisp, the maple leaves rustling like whispered secrets. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked. Once, then fell silent. I was about to head inside when a metallic scrape echoed from the garage, soft, deliberate. The sound of someone testing the side door. My heart lurched. I slipped back through the kitchen, grabbed the flashlight from the junk drawer, and eased the back door open again. The garage was detached 20 feet away, its single bulb flickering through the frosted window. Another scrape, then the faint creak of the wooden floorboards inside. Late that night, I heard someone rummaging in my garage. I froze on the porch flashlight beam, slicing the dark like a hesitant blade. The rummaging grew bolder. A shuffle of boxes, the clink of metal on concrete coming from the far corner of the garage where I stored holiday decorations and Tom's old toolbox. My mind raced Rebecca, sending someone to intimidate Father in a fit of rage. Or worse, a real burglar drawn by the neighborhood whispers of our family drama. I gripped the flashlight tighter. Its weight a poor substitute for the baseball bat leaning forgotten inside. Heart pounding, I crept across the dew-slick grass, staying low behind the hydrangea bushes, the night air sharp with fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. The garage door was ajar, a sliver of moonlight spilling out. I eased closer, phone in my freehand camera app open. Through the gap, I saw the silhouette hunched deliberate, not the broad-shouldered thug I'd feared, but a slight figure in a wool coat, rifling through a cardboard box labeled Grandmother's Keepsakes. They pulled out a small tin, my tin of faded recipe cards, and tucked something inside before replacing it. I snapped 3 quick photos, the figure's profile caught in the flashless mode, the timestamp glowing 12:32 a.m. The tin disturbed but intact. The intruder straightened, glanced toward the house, toward the street, and slipped out the side door into the shadows. I waited 10 heartbeats, then darted forward. The garage smelled of oil and dust undisturbed except for that one box shifted 2 feet from its spot. I opened the tin amid the yellowed cards for pecan pie, and gingerbread was a folded note, fresh paper with handwriting I didn't recognize, but ink that matched Grandmother's era. The spoon is safer with you. More eyes watch than you know. Hargrove. Mrs. Evelyn Hargrove. Grandmother's housekeeper for 40 years, the woman who'd slipped me extra cookies during visits and whispered, "You're the strong one." Miss Ellie, when Mother wasn't listening. She'd retired to a cottage in Chagrin Falls a decade ago, vanished from family lore. But here she was, an ally from the grave's shadow, leaving this breadcrumb tied straight to the letter's secrets. I pocketed the note, secured the garage, and double-locked the house doors. Sleep came in fits, the photos and note burning under my pillow. By dawn, resolve hardened into action. I texted Margaret Ellison a summary, no details yet, and brewed tea strong enough to steel my nerves. At 9 sharp, I dialed Mother voice, casual as Sunday brunch. "Just checking in," I said when she answered, her tone brittle as thin ice. "Everything okay after last night?" She hesitated, the pause loaded. "Fine. Why wouldn't it be?" But I heard the strain, the clatter of dishes in the background masking something frantic. Heard about the garage visitor, I pressed gently, testing. Scared me half to death. "You didn't send anyone, did you, to talk sense into me?" Her gasp was theatrical. "Eleanor Hayes. How dare you accuse we're your family?" But the denial cracked. I pictured her face, flushing eyes darting to Father in the next room. We wouldn't stoop that low. I let silence stretch. Good. Because if loyalties are shifting, I'd hate to find out the hard way. "Tell Rebecca to stay put," Hargrove's watching. I hung up before her sputter could form words, the name a deliberate hook. If Mother remembered Evelyn, if she connected the dots to Grandmother's quiet network of confidants. The bridge ladies, the church quilters who'd adored me, she'd squirm. The call confirmed it, their unity was facade. Someone close had talked, or worse, acted against them. Mia bounded downstairs, mid-morning backpack slung over one shoulder, oblivious to the web tightening. We baked oatmeal cookies, Hargrove's recipe from the tin flour, dusting the counters like fresh snow. As the oven warmed, I mulled the note's promise. More eyes. Did Evelyn have copies of the codicil witnesses to years of slights? The tension coiled like a spring. Every creak of the house felt watched, protected. I glanced out the window, no cars idling, but a cardinal perched on the fence, bold as a sentinel. By afternoon, Ellison replied. Hargrove reached out years ago, archived everything, willing to testify. The ally wasn't Ghost. She was Legion, a hidden cadre Grandmother had cultivated against the tide of favoritism. I felt invincible, the fight no longer solitary. We iced the cookies with pink sprinkles, Mia's laughter filling the kitchen when the mailbox clanged. She raced out, returning with a thick envelope cream stock embossed with gold lettering. "Mom, it's for me." Her eyes widened at the return address. Hawthorne Academy, one of the Midwest's elite boarding schools. Full scholarships only for prodigies. Inside, an invitation to their honors program in arts and leadership starting January, all expenses paid. "How did they even know about my watercolor?" she whispered, awe mixing with excitement. Meanwhile, my daughter received an unexpected invitation to a prestigious boarding school program. Mia clutched the envelope to her chest, the gold embossed crest of Hawthorne Academy, catching the afternoon light like a tiny sun. "Mom, it says they saw my watercolor at the regional exhibit and want me for their winter-intensive 3 months in Vermont. All expenses paid with masterclasses and a showcase at the end." Her voice trembled between wonder and disbelief, the words tumbling out faster than she could shape them. I took the packet from her hands, scanning the letterhead. The itinerary, the glowing recommendation from an art professor I'd never met. Hawthorne was legendary. Alumni included senators and CEOs, scholarships rarer than snow in July. This wasn't coincidence. Someone had pulled strings. We sat on the living room rug, the invitations spread between us like a treasure map. The program began in January, ending just before spring break, meaning Mia would live on campus in Burlington, 3 states away, for 12 weeks. My stomach knotted at the thought. It's an incredible opportunity, I said carefully. But it also means leaving home, leaving me right when everything's uncertain. She nodded, eyes flicking to the phone I'd left charging on the counter, its screen dark but heavy with unread threats. We both knew the timing was suspect. I laid out the risks plainly. If you go, they'll say I sent you away to avoid the fight. They might use your absence to claim I'm unstable, or worse, try to turn the courts against us by saying the house should stay with stable relatives. The codicil required proof of ongoing inequity. An empty bedroom could be twisted into abandonment. Mia listened, chin propped on her knees, no longer the child who cried over cold leftovers, but a girl learning the weight of strategy. And if I stay, she countered, they'll keep treating me like I don't belong. Hawthorne could be my proof that I do. Her voice cracked on the last word, but she didn't look away. We talked for hours, voices low the way conspirators share secrets. I told her about the first time I'd left home for college, how grandmother had slipped me a $20 bill and whispered, "Distance teaches you who fights for you." Mia traced the Hawthorne crest with her finger. I want to go, Mom. Not to run, but to come back stronger. Like you are now. The maturity in her tone undid me. Tears pricked, but I blinked them back. We mapped pros and cons on the back of an electric bill mentorship portfolio, independence versus separation vulnerability, their inevitable spin. By dusk, we had a plan. If she accepted, I'd drive her myself, visit monthly, and document every interaction to counter any smear. As the sky bruised purple, Mia hugged me fierce and sudden. We decide together always, she said, and I felt the shift, no longer protector and protected, but partners. She showered humming the school fight song she'd already memorized from the brochure, while I folded laundry and rehearsed responses to the inevitable family barrage. The invitation had raised the stakes from property to person. Mia's future was now the battlefield, and I would not let them weaponize her dreams. Headlights swept the driveway at 7:42 p.m. I peered through the blinds. Rebecca's SUV engine idling. She climbed out alone. Coat collar turned up against the chill, something glinting in her fist. My pulse spiked, but I opened the door before she could knock. She stood on the welcome mat we'd painted together last summer, eyes red-rimmed, cheeks blotchy from crying or wind or both. In her outstretched palm lay the silver spoon, tarnished now as if it had traveled through fire. That evening, my sister showed up at my door with the missing silver spoon in her hand. Rebecca's fingers trembled as the silver spoon caught the porch light, its bowl reflecting the wet streaks on her cheeks. She looked smaller than I remembered, coat hanging loose on shoulders that had always carried entitlement like armor. Ellie. She whispered, voice cracking on the second syllable, "Can I come in? Please." The plea was raw, stripped of the polished sarcasm she usually wielded. I stepped aside, caution warring with curiosity, and closed the door behind her with a soft click that sounded final. We stood in the foyer, the air thick with the scent of oatmeal cookies and the faint metallic tang of the spoon. She held it out like an offering, palms up. I took it, she said, tears spilling fresh. That night after you left, I thought if I hid it, they'd blame you and you'd back down. I was wrong. Her confession hung between us, fragile as the heirloom itself. I took the spoon, its weight familiar yet foreign, and set it on the entry table beside Mia's school portrait. Rebecca's shoulders shook with silent sobs. They're tearing me apart, Ellie. Mom says I'm ungrateful. Dad says I'm a liability. Lily's furious I lost her legacy. I can't breathe in that house anymore. I led her to the living room, motioning to the couch. She sank into it as if her bones had turned to water. The story poured out in fragments: the credit cards maxed the country club membership, frozen the lake house keys confiscated by father in a rage. "They need someone to blame," she said, wiping her nose with the sleeve of her coat. "And it's always been easiest to blame the one who isn't." She stopped, eyes flicking to the family photos on the mantel, none of which included her as a baby. My pulse quickened. I had always assumed the gap in albums was mother's disorganization, but Rebecca's hesitation carried the weight of something deeper. "Finish it," I said quietly. She met my gaze, chin trembling. "I'm not blood, Ellie. I'm adopted. They told me when I was 16 after grandmother caught me snooping in the safe. She made me swear to keep it secret, said it would destroy Mom if it came out. But she warned me too. Said the favoritism would eat the family alive if someone didn't stop enabling it. I thought if I just played the part, it would protect everyone, including you." The revelation landed like a stone in still water ripples, spreading through decades of memory. Rebecca, the golden child, had been a performance all along. Her shine borrowed her security, a house of cards built on silence. Betrayal flared hot in my chest, years of watching her receive the best slices, the loudest praise, the open wallets, all. While she knew the truth and said nothing. Yet beneath the anger stirred a reluctant pity. She had been a child handed a role too heavy, told her worth depended on never questioning the script. "Why now?" I asked, voice steadier than I felt. She gestured to the spoon. "Because you're the only one fighting back. And I'm tired of pretending I don't need you." We sat in silence long enough for the clock to tick past 8. Then, cautiously, I retrieved a legal pad from the kitchen. "If we do this," I said, "it's on paper. Equal shares for Mia and Lily in the trust. The house reverts only if inequity continues. You testify to the adoption, to the warnings. In return, you get breathing room, your own account, no more leeching off mine." Rebecca nodded, tears slowing. We sketched terms in hurried scrawl, power of attorney split 3 ways. College funds matched dollar for dollar, public acknowledgement of both girls as heirs. I kept the pen capped until she signed, first her hand shaking but resolute. I added my name beneath the ink still wet when I slid the pad away. Alliance tentative as frost on a window pane. The mixed emotions churned as we spoke in low tones. Betrayal lingered like smoke. Her silence had cost Mia. Tears had cost me years of swallowed pride. Yet reconciliation glimmered, fragile but real. She was my sister, blood or not, and for the first time I saw the fear behind her bravado. "I'll talk to Lily," she promised. "Make her understand this isn't about taking from her, it's about giving her a cousin who isn't invisible." I nodded, throat tight. We hugged awkwardly, the spoon between us on the table like a silent witness. She left just after 9, headlights sweeping the driveway as she backed out. I locked the door, leaned against it, and let the day's weight settle. Sleep came fitfully. Dreams tangled with courtroom gavels and childhood birthday cakes. Morning light filtered through the blinds, gray and reluctant. I padded downstairs in socks, started coffee, and opened the front door to retrieve the newspaper. A Polaroid was taped to the welcome mat, our old family portrait from the Victorians' hallway, the one taken the Christmas Rebecca turned 10. My face had been slashed through with thick black marker eyes, obliterated mouth a jagged void. Mia's smaller figure beside me remained untouched, but the message was clear. The next morning, the old family portrait was altered, someone had crossed out my face. The Polaroid trembled between my fingers, the thick black X across my face bleeding slightly into the glossy paper where the marker had pressed too hard. Mia's smaller image beside me had been spared, but the message was unmistakable. I was the target, the one to be erased. The photo was a replica of the large framed portrait that hung in my parents' hallway, the one taken 22 years ago when Rebecca's hair was still in pigtails. And I wore the awkward smile of a teenager who believed family meant forever. Someone had gone to the trouble of printing defacing and delivering it before dawn. The chill that ran through me had nothing to do with the October air seeping through the open door. I carried the picture inside, laid it on the kitchen table, and stared until the coffee finished brewing. Mia was still asleep. I didn't wake her. Instead, I snapped a close-up with my phone, timestamped 6:47 a.m., and emailed it to Margaret Ellison with the subject line, escalation. Then I dressed, kissed Mia's forehead, and drove the familiar route to Maple Lane, the defaced photo tucked into my purse like a loaded weapon. The Victorian looked smaller in daylight, its gingerbread trim peeling the lawn dotted with early fallen leaves. Mother answered the bell in her robe eyes, puffy from lack of sleep or tears. Eleanor. What on earth she began. But I brushed past her into the foyer. The original portrait hung where it always had above the console table. My face and Mia's had been obliterated with the same brutal strokes, the markers still wet enough to smell. Rebecca hovered at the foot of the stairs, Lily peeking from behind her. Father emerged from his study newspaper folded under his arm, face thunderous. "Who did this?" I demanded, voice low but vibrating with fury. Mother wrung her hands. "We found it that way this morning. A prank, surely." Teenagers who have a key I cut in." Rebecca's gaze slid away. Lily whispered, "It wasn't me." Father cleared his throat. "The portrait represents tradition, Eleanor. The family line. If certain members choose to step outside that line." He let the implication hang. I laughed, a sharp sound that made them flinch. Tradition. You mean the tradition of pretending Mia and I don't exist unless we're convenient. I pulled the Polaroid from my purse and slapped it onto the console. This is vandalism. This is a threat. And it stops now. Mother reached for the photo, but I snatched it back. No. This is evidence. Rebecca stepped forward, voice pleading. "Ellie, we're trying." The agreement you signed last night while crying on my couch. I turned to her. "Tell them, Rebecca. Tell them what you told me." Her mouth opened closed. Father's eyes narrowed. What agreement? Silence stretched thick as the dust on the chandelier. I seized it. "I'm done asking. Margaret Ellison has the codicil, the spoon photos, Hargrove's statement, and now this." I gestured at the portrait. "File the affidavit today, or I walk into probate tomorrow with everything. The house, the trust, the company shares gone." Mother gasped. Lily began to cry. Rebecca looked as if I'd struck her. Father's face purpled. "You wouldn't dare drag the family name through the mud." "Watch me," I said. "I've spent a lifetime protecting it. My turn to protect mine, too." I left them arguing in the foyer, voices rising as the door shut behind me. In the car, I opened the folder on my phone labeled Insurance. Inside the garage, intruder photos, the anonymous emails, the defaced portrait, Hargrove's note, the signed alliance with Rebecca. My strongest card wasn't the house. It was the truth, documented, time-stamped, undeniable. I emailed the entire package to a local investigative reporter I'd met years ago at a school fundraiser, subject line, Hayes Family Inheritance, dispute exclusive. Public exposure was no longer a threat. It was a promise. The drive home blurred. Mia met me at the door, eyes wide. Grandma called the school, said I was unstable because of the fighting. My blood ran cold. They were already counterattacking. I hugged her tight. They're scared, baby. Scared people lash out. But we're ready. We spent the afternoon printing documents, notarizing copies, building a fortress of paper and pixels. By evening, the divide felt continental. Rebecca texted a single emoji, a broken heart, then nothing. Mother left voicemails I deleted unheard. Father's silence was the loudest of all. I cooked spaghetti. Mia set the table and we ate in companionable quiet. The altered portrait's image burned into my mind like a brand. At 10:17 p.m., the television flickered to life on its own. Mia had left it on the local news channel. The anchor's voice cut through the room. Tonight, an exclusive report on Hayes Manufacturing, the Cleveland-based tool and die company founded by George Hayes in 1973. Sources allege irregularities in succession planning and trust management that could trigger a major probate battle. A grainy photo of the Victorian flashed on screen, followed by file footage of father at a ribbon cutting 20 years ago. My phone buzzed Margaret Ellison. "It's out. Brace yourself." That night, a broadcast aired on local news about the company my father once founded. The anchor's voice sharpened as the camera cut to a dimly lit studio graphic, Hayes Manufacturing logo superimposed over a gavel and question mark. Allegations have surfaced that George Hayes, the company's founder, may have manipulated trust documents to favor certain family members, potentially defrauding shareholders and heirs alike. Sources close to the matter claim evidence of altered inheritance clauses dating back to the 1990s. My fork hovered mid-air over the cooling spaghetti, Mia's eyes wide beside me on the couch. The segment rolled footage of the Victorian house, then Father's old office building downtown, now a ghost of rusting chain-link fence. The reporter, a sharp-featured woman I'd seen at City Hall pressers, stood outside the probate court. Documents obtained exclusively by Channel 9 reveal a hidden codicil in the Hayes family will triggered by inequitable treatment. Insiders allege Hayes diverted company pension funds into personal trusts, sidelining rightful claimants. A blurred exhibit flashed a page from Grandmother's Will, Section 14. Circled in red. My hands shook as I muted the TV, but the damage was done. Mia whispered, "Is that about us?" I pulled her close, the broadcast's echo pounding in my ears. This wasn't my leak. The reporter mentioned a longtime family associate providing the files. Hargrove, Evelyn Hargrove. The shadow ally who'd slipped into my garage, now stepping into the light. She'd held the proof all these years, ledgers of Father's, adjustments, emails burying the codicil, witness statements from Grandmother's bridge circle. The screen name checked her, Evelyn H., former household staff, speaking on condition of anonymity. But the initials were enough. Anyone who knew our history would connect them. Power shifted in that instant, their private war spilled into Cleveland's living rooms. Father's reputation the first casualty. Their desperation hit my phone like shrapnel. Mother's text arrived first. "Turn it off. This is libel." Then Rebecca Dad's having a heart episode. Hospital now. Father's number flashed voicemail. "Eleanor, end this madness. The company's done. Everything's gone." Neighbors were calling too, the school principal asking if Mia was safe amid the scandal. I let it ring, the chaos, a symphony of their unraveling. Rebecca followed with a photo, Father on a gurney, oxygen mask, fogging Mother clutching his hand in the ER waiting room. "Please, Ellie. Mercy. Mercy." The word ignited something fierce. I opened the anonymous email account and drafted the demand attaching Ellison's probate timeline and Hargrove's public filing notice. To the family group, Mia is heir. Sign the amendment by dawn, or Hargrove testifies fully, company audits adoption papers, every slight documented. The house reverts. Your choice ends tonight. Send. I powered off the phone, the spoon from Rebecca's visit glinting on the mantel like a truce flag they'd already burned. Mia curled against me, questions bubbling. "Will Grandpa be okay?" I stroked her hair. "Physically, yes. But this is bigger than him now. It's about what we deserve." We watched a rerun of her favorite baking show, The Normalcy. A thin shield, but she fell asleep with her head on my lap, trusting the storm would pass. I carried her to bed, then paced the kitchen, replaying the broadcast. Father's company had been his empire, sold in 2005 for millions, proceeds funneled into the trust he'd twisted. Fraud hints meant IRS audits, shareholder suits, the works. Public scrutiny stripped their armor. Country club whispers would become headlines. By midnight, replies trickled in. "Rebecca, we're drafting. Give us till morning." Mother, "You win. Just stop the bleeding." Father's silence screamed loudest. No bluster, no threats. The divide was a chasm now. They'd fracture before bending further. I emailed the reporter a single line, Mia Hayes confirmed as co-heir. Statement forthcoming. No more leaks from me, but the seed was planted. Their desperation would force transparency. Dawn crept in gray sheets. I brewed tea, watched the mailbox through the window. The neighborhood stirred, joggers slowing past our house, curtains twitching. A delivery van hummed by, but no spoon, no note. Relief mixed with wariness. Hargrove's hand or a ploy. Mia woke to pancakes, her hawthorn packet on the table. "We decide today," I said. She nodded, fork poised. The fight had gone public power, irrevocably mine. We ate in quiet victory when the mailbox flag snapped up. I stepped out in slippers, retrieved the small, padded envelope, no stamp, hand-delivered in the night. Inside, the silver spoon, wrapped in tissue, and a crisp card, "Food for thought." While we slept, the silver spoon appeared in our mailbox with a note, "Food for thought." The spoon lay on the kitchen table like a small, cold accusation, its handle catching the morning light in a way that made the engraved initials shimmer. I turned the note over in my fingers, the cardstock crisp and anonymous, the words printed in neat block letters. "Food for thought." No signature, no flourish, just that single line and the faint scent of lavender that clung to the tissue wrapping. Mia hovered beside me, still in her pajamas, eyes wide. "Who sent it, Mom?" she whispered. I shook my head, but my mind was already racing through possibilities. Hargrove Ellison, or someone closer playing a longer game. I photographed the envelope, the note, the spoon from every angle, then sealed them in a plastic bag and tucked them into the evidence folder. The return felt too neat, too timed with the broadcast's fallout. Hidden supporters, the note promised, but I'd learned to trust nothing at face value. I brewed coffee strong enough to scald and sat at the table, the spoon between us like a chess piece waiting to be moved. Mia traced its handle with a fingertip. "It's the same one Lily always used," she said softly. "They must be really scared to give it back." Her observation cut deeper than she knew. Fear was the only currency they had left. By 9 o'clock, Rebecca's text arrived. "We need to talk. Neutral ground. The coffee shop on Lee Road. 10:30. I stared at the screen, the lavender scent still in my nose. Neutral ground meant she didn't trust the house anymore. Didn't trust mother or father. I typed back. "Fine. Bring the amendment draft." Mia watched me dress, worry creasing her brow. "Be careful," she said, and I kissed her forehead, promising pancakes when I returned. The coffee shop smelled of burnt espresso and cinnamon rolls. Rebecca sat in the corner, booth coat folded beside her, a manila envelope on the table. Her eyes were bloodshot, hair pulled into a messy knot. She pushed the envelope toward me as I slid in opposite. "The lawyers drew it up at dawn," she said, voice hoarse. "Mia gets 25% of the trust, Lily. 25, the rest split between Mom and Dad for life estate. House stays intact until they pass." She hesitated, then slid the note across the table, the same cardstock, the same block letters. I left it. Thought it would buy time, make you think we had backup. I was wrong. The twist hit like ice water. Rebecca, my tentative ally, had orchestrated the spoon's return to manipulate me, to dangle the illusion of broader support while she negotiated behind my back with the parents. "You played both sides," I said, keeping my voice level. "Again." She flinched. "I was trying to protect Lily's future. Dad threatened to cut her out completely if I didn't deliver you." Her confessions spilled out, late-night meetings in the study, father raging about the company stock plummeting, mother crying over canceled bridge luncheons. Rebecca had promised to calm Ellie down in exchange for Lily's full share. The note was her insurance policy, a fake olive branch to keep me off balance. Betrayal burned, but beneath it surged a cold clarity. I opened the envelope, scanned the draft. The numbers were better than I'd expected, but the life estate clause left the house vulnerable to their whims until death. "Not good enough," I said. "Mia gets 30% now, voting rights on the board, and the house reverts immediately upon filing. No life estate." Rebecca's eyes widened. "They'll never..." "They will. I cut in or Hargrove testifies next week. The IRS is already circling the company sale. You want Lily to inherit debt?" I slid my own counterdraft across the table, printed that morning with Ellison's revisions. Rebecca stared at it, then at me, and for the first time I saw respect flicker through the fear. We negotiated in hushed tones, the clatter of coffee cups masking our words. She conceded the voting rights, I conceded a small maintenance stipend for the parents. By 11, we had a new document initials on every page. Signing tomorrow at Ellison's office, I said. Noon. Bring everyone. Rebecca nodded, defeated but not broken. I'm done lying, she whispered. For Lily's sake, I believed half of it. I believed half. Driving home, confidence settled in my bones like warm steel. Rebecca's double-dealing had backfired. It forced her hand exposed the parents' desperation and gave me leverage I hadn't anticipated. The spoon sat in my purse, no longer a symbol of their favor, but of my control. I called Ellison, confirmed the appointment, then Hargrove, her gravelly voice steady. I'll be there with the originals. The network was real and I was its center. Mia greeted me with a hug and a plate of slightly burnt pancakes. We ate at the table, the spoon between us like a trophy. We're close, I told her. One more step. She smiled, syrup on her chin, and for the first time I saw the woman she would become, resilient, unafraid. The betrayal revelations had sharpened me, not shattered me. Every lie uncovered was a brick in the wall I built around us. The next day dawned crisp and bright. I dressed in the navy suit I'd worn to Tom's funeral, the one that made me feel invincible. Mia waved from the porch as I backed out her Hawthorne packet tucked under her arm she'd decided to accept, but only after the signing. Ellison's office was a converted brick house in Shaker Heights, the conference room smelling of lemon polish and old paper. The family arrived in a tense cluster, mother clutching a tissue. Father pale but upright, Rebecca with Lily trailing behind. Hargrove sat at the far end, gray hair pulled tight, eyes sharp as ever. Ellison laid out the final amendment signatures required on every page. Father's hand shook as he reached for the pen. Mother whispered, "This is robbery." But Rebecca silenced her with a look. The room held its breath. Then the lights flickered once, twice, and plunged into darkness. A collective gasp. I heard papers rustle, a chair scrape. When the emergency bulbs kicked in, the document was gone, vanished from the table, the folder empty. On the day of signing, the lights went out, and the document vanished. Chaos erupted in the dim red glow of the emergency lights, chairs scraping back as shouts filled the conference room. Mother screamed, "The papers, they're gone!" Father bolted upright, his face a mask of feigned shock, while Rebecca clutched Lily close, eyes darting to the windows. Hargrove remained seated, unflinching, her hands folded like a judge's. Ellison fumbled for her desk lamp, the beam cutting shadows across the empty table where the amendment folder had lain moments before. I scanned the room. No open doors, no shattered glass, but the document, the pen still warm from Father's grip, had vanished in the 10-second blackout. "Someone took it," I said, voice cutting through the panic like a knife. Ellison nodded, already dialing security on her cell. "Power surge or sabotage doesn't matter. We have cameras." But I knew better. This was no accident. Father's eyes flicked to his watch, a subtle tick I'd noticed during his ER voicemail, the same one he'd worn when arguing over the codicil. The prior clues aligned his unexplained hospital episode, coinciding with the broadcast, Rebecca's whispered negotiations, the garage intruder's timing after his furious call. He'd hired outsiders, cheap muscle from his old factory days, the kind who'd flip a breaker for cash under the table. Security arrived in under 2 minutes, a burly guard with a flashlight sweeping the corners. Ellison replayed the feed on her laptop at 12:03:47 p.m. Lights out. Shadows shifted near Father's chair. By 12:03:55, lights flicker back, folder missing. The guard zoomed in, a gloved hand, masculine, snatching from the table's edge. Father blustered, "This is outrageous frame job." But Rebecca's face drained white. "Dad," she hissed, "you promised no more tricks." He rounded on her, voice low thunder. "You think I'd let her steal everything I called Mickey from the plant? $50 to delay things." The confession slipped out raw and desperate, his empire crumbling under the weight of his own admission. The room froze. Mother gasped, hand to her throat. Lily whimpered. Hargrove leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "On record now, George. Probate loves confessions." Ellison hit record on her phone, Father's slip immortalized. I felt a surge, not rage, but vindication. This was the break, the proof of sabotage, turning their desperation into my ammunition. Digital backups, I said calmly, pulling my tablet from my bag. I'd synced everything that morning, the amendment witnesses' affidavits, Hargrove's ledgers, even the defaced portrait. Ellison connected it to the printer pages, whirring out fresh copies. "We're proceeding," I declared. "Sign now or the affidavit files at 1 p.m. sharp with this video attached." Father slumped defeated, but his eyes burned with cornered fury. "You win this round, Eleanor. But mark my words." Rebecca interrupted, grabbing the pen. "Sign it, Dad. For Lily." One by one they scrawled their names. Mother sniffling. Father muttering curses, Rebecca steady for once. Ellison notarized, stamped and filed electronically with the court. The house was ours. Reversion triggered, Mia's share locked. Hargrove nodded approval. "Your grandmother would be proud." We filed out into the crisp noon air, the weight lifting like fog burning off. But urgency clawed at me. Father's saboteurs meant escalation. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed a blocked number. Back off the house or the girl pays. Attached a photo of Mia at the bus stop that morning, time-stamped 8:15 a.m. My blood iced. They'd targeted her, tailed her to school, snapped it for leverage. I forwarded it to Ellison instantly. Escalation. Restraining order now. Hargrove texted, "Stay vigilant." More eyes on them than ever. The drive home blurred threats looping in my mind. Mickey, whoever he was, could be anywhere. I called the school, arranged pickup. Then Mia's phone, no answer, but a classmate confirmed she was in art class. Paranoia gripped tighter. Father's network ran deep, old boys from the factory willing to intimidate for loyalty or lunch money. By the time I pulled into the driveway, resolve had hardened to diamond. No more half measures. I'd install cameras, alert police loop in Hargrove's contacts. This wasn't just about legacy anymore. It was survival. Mia burst from the house, backpack swinging. "Mom, the signing." I hugged her, fierce, scanning the street. "Done. Your co-owner." Her grin lit the gray day, but I kept one eye on the rear view as we drove to the station for statements. Threats had gone personal, Mia in crosshairs, our home. No sanctuary. Father's desperation birthed monsters. Mine forged weapons. Ellison called TRO, filed police en route to Maple Lane. Hargrove backup arriving tonight. We stopped for ice cream normalcy, a brief shield, but my phone stayed glued to my hand. As we pulled up curbside at home, it lit up again, silent mode off, notifications flooding. I looked at my phone. 108 missed calls flashed again. The screen glowed like a fevered heartbeat, the number 108 pulsing in red across the lock screen, as if the phone itself were gasping. I stared at it from the driver's seat, Mia's ice cream cone dripping forgotten onto the paper napkin in her lap. The calls had come in waves first, Mother's number, then Rebecca's, then Father's private line, then a string of unknowns that matched the blocked threat from earlier. 108, the same tally that had flooded my inbox the day I cut the money, now returned like a vengeful echo. Their panic had doubled, tripled, become a siren only I could hear. I powered the phone off, but the number lingered behind my eyelids. "They're scared," Mia said quietly, licking chocolate from her thumb. "Scared people do stupid things." Her voice carried the calm of someone who had watched the storm brew and now stood at its center. I nodded, turned the key, and drove us home under a sky the color of wet slate. Inside, I laid the phone face down on the kitchen counter and opened my laptop. The digital backup of the signed amendment sat in an encrypted folder triple copied to cloud USB and Ellison's server. The restraining order had been granted an hour ago. Police cruisers now idled periodically past Maple Lane. Hargrove had texted a single thumbs-up emoji. She had stationed 2 retired deputies in an unmarked van across the street from the Victorian. We were fortified, but fortresses still needed gates closed. Mia pulled a chair beside me, her sketchpad open to a fresh page. "We end this at the table," she said. Their table. One last dinner. "We control the menu, the timing, the exit." I raised an eyebrow. The girl who once cried over cold leftovers was mapping battle lines. She drew a quick floor plan of the dining room marking sightlines exits the location of the security camera Father had installed after the spoon vanished. "I'll record everything on my phone," she continued. "Hidden in my pocket. If they try anything, words, threats, sabotage, we have proof." Her pencil scratched confidently, and I felt the shift. She was no longer shielding behind me. She was flanking. We spent the afternoon crafting the invitation. I typed it on heavy cream stock, the same weight grandmother had used for bridge luncheons. Sunday, 6 p.m. Hayes family residence. Mandatory attendance agenda. Final acknowledgement of Mia Hayes as co-heir, RSVP not required. Absence will be noted in probate filings. Mia added a postscript in her looping cursive. Bring appetites and honesty. We printed 6 copies, sealed them in envelopes addressed to Mother, Father, Rebecca, Lily Hargrove, and Ellison. Mia licked the stamps with deliberate ceremony. "They'll think it's a trap," she said. "Good. Let them sweat." I drove the envelopes to the post office for certified mail, then to the police station to file copies with the TRO. The desk sergeant raised an eyebrow at the dinner invitation, but stamped, "Received without comment." On the way home, we stopped at the hardware store for motion sensor floodlights. Mia chose the brightest LEDs, explaining shadows were their last weapon. We installed them ourselves, her small hands steady on the drill, the beams slicing the dusk like searchlights. By nightfall, the plan was set. Mia rehearsed her lines in the mirror, practicing the calm delivery of a girl announcing her own future. I rehearsed mine, the words that would sever the last tether. We cooked nothing. The dinner would be catered neutral pots, no poisoned gravy. Hargrove confirmed her deputies would park 2 houses down, ready to intervene. Ellison would arrive early, tablet in hand, live streaming to a secure server. Rebecca texted a single word: "Coming." Mother left a voicemail I deleted unheard. Father's silence was the loudest refusal. The week crawled. Police reports documented nightly drive-bys of suspicious vehicles near our house. Each license plate traced back to Father's old factory contacts. Mia's school sent a counselor to check on her family's stress. She smiled, said she was fine, and asked for extra credit in civics. I filed the final probate addendum, time-stamped unassailable. The 108 calls became a ritual. Every morning the screen lit. Every morning I powered off without listening. Their desperation fed our resolve. Sunday arrived brittle and cold. We dressed in navy, Mia in her hawthorn blazer, me in the suit that had seen funerals and now would see rebirth. The caterers arrived at 5, setting chafing dishes of roast chicken and rosemary potatoes on the sideboard Father had refinished the year Rebecca was born. Hargrove took her post at the front window, deputy badge hidden beneath a cardigan. Ellison tested the livestream green light steady. Mia checked her phone battery, slipped it into the inner pocket of her blazer microphone, angled toward her collar. At 5:55, the first car crunched gravel. Mother emerged, first coat buttoned to the throat, eyes darting like a cornered animal. Father followed, leaning on his cane, face carved from granite. Rebecca and Lily brought up the rear, Lily clutching a gift bag as if it might shield her. They filed in without speaking, the air thick with the scent of rosemary and reckoning. We took our places, Mia and I, at the foot of the table, the others in their usual seats. The silver spoon returned, polished neutral, placed dead center like a loaded gun. Dinner passed in brittle small talk. Weather school, the price of gas. Mia served herself first, heaping her plate with the hottest chicken, the crispiest potatoes. The others picked at their food forks, scraping china. At 6:47 exactly, I pushed back my chair and stood. At the family dinner a week later, I stood up and announced the new heir. The scrape of my chair cut the brittle chatter like a blade, and every eye in the room snapped to me. The chandelier's low light caught the silver spoon at the center of the table, its bowl reflecting the flicker of candles and the tremor in Mother's hand. I placed both palms flat on the polished wood, feeling the cool grain that had borne 1,000 family meals, and drew a breath that tasted of rosemary and finality. Tonight, I said, my voice steady enough to carry to the corners of the dining room, we end the pretense. Mia Hayes is hereby recognized as rightful co-owner of the Hayes estate effective immediately under the hidden clause in Grandmother's Will Section 14 as triggered by documented inequity. A hush fell so complete I could hear the tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. Mia stood beside me, blazer crisp chin high, her phone recording every heartbeat. I slid the notarized amendment across the table, the fresh ink gleaming. The probate court has already received the filing. The house, the trust, the remaining company shares 30% to Mia, 25% to Lily, the balance in supervised accounts for your lifetimes. Sign again here in front of witnesses or the reversion is automatic at 9 tomorrow morning. Mother's fork clattered to her plate. Rebecca's eyes welled, but she reached for the pen first, scrawling her name with a flourish that looked almost relieved. Lily stared at the document as if it were written in a foreign tongue, then followed her mother's lead. Father remained motionless, cane-gripped, white-knuckled face carved from the same granite that had built his factory. Silence stretched until the candles guttered. Then he spoke, voice gravel over broken glass. Your grandmother knew, he said, the words dragged out like a confession in a dim confessional. She sat me down the week before she died, showed me that clause told me exactly what would happen if I ever let the scales tip too far. Said blood didn't matter, only fairness did. I laughed, thought she was senile. His laugh now was hollow, a dry rattle. She wasn't. She saw this night coming 30 years ago. He lifted the pen hand shaking and signed with a slash that tore the paper slightly. Mother sobbed once, a sound like fabric ripping, and added her name beneath his. The reactions unfolded in slow motion. Rebecca exhaled a long, shuddering breath and pulled Lily close. The girl's tears were silent, but her shoulders relaxed as if a weight had lifted. Mother dabbed her eyes with the linen napkin, the same one she'd used to wipe Lily's chin minutes earlier, now stained with mascara and defeat. Hargrove allowed herself a small, satisfied nod from her seat by the window, the deputies outside, invisible but present. Ellison tapped her tablet, the live stream ending with a soft chime. Grudging respect flickered across Father's face, respect for the daughter he'd underestimated for the granddaughter who now held a third of his empire. I felt the legacy settle on my shoulders like a mantle I had earned, not inherited. The dining room, once a stage for exclusion, now bore witness to reclamation. Mia's hand found mine under the table, her fingers warm and sure. We had fractured the old order not with screams but with signatures, and the dignity that had been denied us for decades now stood tall in the candlelight. The fractures in the family were visible cracks in the plaster of tradition, but they were clean breaks, the kind that heals stronger. Applause started, small Hargrove's firm clap, then Ellison's, then Mia's bright laugh breaking the spell. Rebecca joined tentative, and even Lily managed a watery smile. Mother's sobs quieted into hiccups. Father stared at the signed pages as if they were a foreign treaty, then pushed back his chair and stood cane-tapping once on the floor like a gavel. It's done, he said. And for the first time in my memory, he looked old. The caterers cleared the plates in near silence, the clink of china a soft requiem. Mia hugged Rebecca, a quick, fierce squeeze that surprised them both. I shook Ellison's hand, thanked Hargrove with a look that needed no words. We moved toward the door, the weight of victory light on our tongues. But as the applause faded into the rustle of coats and goodbyes, my gaze snagged on the small brass key dangling from Father's keyring, the one he'd carried since I was 12, the one that opened the safe deposit box at First National he'd bragged about for emergencies only. It glinted as he pocketed it, a final secret winking in the low light. But as the applause faded, I noticed the safe deposit box my father opened years ago, still holding one last secret. The key vanished into Father's pocket with a soft metallic click, but its image burned behind my eyes as Mia and I stepped onto the porch. The night air carried the bite of late October sharp enough to cut through the lingering warmth of the dining room. Behind us, the door closed with the finality of a book snapping shut. We did not look back. Mia's hand slipped into mine, her fingers steady now, no longer the trembling child's grip from weeks ago. Together we walked down the gravel path. floodlights from the caterer's van sweeping across the lawn like departing searchlights. Our sedan waited at the curb, engine still ticking from the drive over. I opened the passenger door for her, then circled to the driver's side, the crunch of leaves under my shoes, the only sound in the quiet street. We drove in silence at first, the Victorian shrinking in the rear view, until its lighted windows were pinpricks swallowed by darkness. Mia broke the hush. "We did it," she said, voice hushed with wonder. "It's really ours." I nodded, throat tight. The house. The trust, the shares 30% in her name, irrevocable. But more than property, we carried something weightier, the knowledge that we had walked away unbroken. The scholarship letter lay folded in my purse, discovered that morning in grandmother's final envelope tucked inside the safe deposit box, keys accompanying note Ellison had retrieved from probate archives. A full ride to Hawthorne plus a living stipend funded by a trust grandmother had seeded in 2008, earmarked for the granddaughter who earns her place. No strings, no favoritism, just foresight. Mia would board in January, portfolio in hand, future unencumbered. I refused full forgiveness the way one refuses a cracked cup, politely, firmly, without malice. Mother's tears. Father's grudging signature. Rebecca's tentative hug at the door, none erased the years of calculated slights. I had offered them a path to decency. They had chosen sabotage until cornered. Reconciliation would come if ever on terms of mutual respect, not obligation. For now, distance was the kindest boundary. Mia understood. "They'll learn," she said, staring out the window at passing street lamps. "Or they won't. Either way, we're free." The family's consequences unfolded in the weeks that followed, retribution as deliberate as it was hallowed. The house sold at auction within a month. Probate demanded liquidity to settle the company's back taxes once Hargrove's ledgers surfaced in court. Mother and father moved to a modest condo downtown, the country club membership, long-canceled bridge invitations dried up. Rebecca took a job managing a boutique in Beechwood. Lily enrolled in public school, both learning the texture of earned wages. Father's name appeared in the business section beneath headlines about shareholder suits. The empire he'd built on favoritism crumbled under the weight of transparency. Neighbors who once fawned now crossed the street. Their reputation, once polished silver, tarnished to dull pewter. We meanwhile built anew. The sale proceeds funded renovations on our bungalow, new windows, a sunlit studio for Mia's easels, a garden where roses replaced the hydrangeas that had hidden garage intruders. I launched the tutoring center I'd dreamed of, afternoons filled with children who arrived hungry for knowledge, not scraps. Mia's first Hawthorne portfolio earned her a solo exhibit in the spring showcase. The check from grandmother's stipend covered frames and canvas. We hosted Hargrove for Sunday supper, her stories of grandmother's quiet rebellions filling the rooms with laughter instead of tension. Yet the safe deposit box lingered in my mind, its contents still sealed. Ellison had secured the key from probate, but the bank required dual signatures, Mia's and mine, before opening. We agreed to wait until her 18th birthday, a final gift from grandmother to be unwrapped together. Whatever lay inside Stock's letters. Perhaps the original spoon's twin would be ours to choose, not theirs to dictate. The mystery was a promise, not a threat. On the night we moved the last box from the old house, Mia paused on the porch, paintbrush in hand, adding a final stroke to the mailbox haze in bold cobalt. She stepped back, surveyed her work, and grinned. "For the next generation," she said. I pulled her close, the scent of turpentine and possibility in her hair. We had refused the inheritance of resentment, the legacy of exclusion. In its place, we planted independence, watered it with boundaries, watched it bloom. Because sometimes justice doesn't end with apologies. It begins with what you refuse to take. The flickering candlelight danced across the polished oak table, casting long shadows that seemed to mock the warmth my family pretended to share. It was supposed to be a simple Sunday dinner at my parents' sprawling estate, the kind where generations gathered laughing over heirloom recipes. But as I watched, my heart shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. My daughter, sweet little Emma, sat there wide-eyed, her plate shoved in front of her like an afterthought, a heap of cold, congealed leftovers from last night's roast scraped together without a care. No fresh carving, no steaming sides, just scraps. Meanwhile, my sister's daughter, my niece, beamed from the head of the table, the seat of honor that should have been shared. In her chubby fist gleamed the family silver spoon, an antique heirloom passed down with pomp, as my parents cooed over her like she was royalty reborn. "Our little princess deserves the best," my mother gushed while my father nodded approvingly, ignoring Emma's trembling lip. The favoritism wasn't new, it had simmered in our family for years, a toxic undercurrent I'd swallowed for too long. But seeing Emma's eyes well up, her small voice cracking with a sob that echoed through the room, that was the breaking point. Betrayal burned in my chest like acid. Humiliation for my child, my flesh and blood treated like a second-class citizen in her own grandparents' home. I said nothing. No explosive rant, no pleas for fairness. I simply rose, took Emma's hand in mine, her tiny fingers cold and shaking, and led her out into the night. The door clicked shut behind us, sealing the silence of my rage. That evening, alone in the dim glow of my laptop, I logged into the joint accounts. Every cent I'd funneled to my parents and sister over the years, the allowance that kept their lavish lifestyle afloat, I withdrew it all. No mercy, no warning. No. By noon the next day, my phone erupted in a frenzy of calls, desperate voicemails, frantic texts begging, accusing, unraveling. But oh dear viewer, this is merely the spark. What follows is a whirlwind of shocking twists, hidden letters from the grave, vanishing heirlooms, midnight intruders, and a family secret that shatters everything. Stick with me to the end, and I promise you'll witness the ultimate payoff, sweet, satisfying revenge, where the overlooked rise, the entitled fall, and justice tastes like victory. You won't believe how it all unfolds. If this story of family betrayal and triumphant justice hit home for you, smash that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss the next jaw-dropping tale. Drop a comment below. Have you ever cut ties with toxic family for the sake of your kids? What's the most outrageous favoritism you've witnessed? Your stories fuel this channel, and I read every single one. Let's build a community where the overlooked finally get their say.